Welcome to the unSeminary podcast. Are you looking for practical ministry help to drive your ministry further, faster? Have a sinking feeling that your ministry training didn't prepare you for the real world? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in pursuit of stuff that we wish they had taught in seminary. Buckle up and let's get started with this week's unSeminary podcast.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to the unSeminary podcast. My name is Rich, the host around these parts. So glad that you've decided to tune in. Today we've got Northridge Church on the line. Scott Bixby is leader there, executive pastor. It's a great church. A friend of ours, a friend of the podcast, actually a friend of unSeminary. They've got 3 campuses in Rochester, in beautiful Rochester, we like to call it, the cultural hub of the world. Actually, we've talked about them in the past. We talked about, you guys have a location or a couple locations in movie theaters. We've referenced that in the past.
Yep.
And we've done all kinds of great things. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Rich. It's great to be here.
No, I'm so glad that you're on the show today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Northridge? Give us the kind of Northridge story, and what would people experience when they came this weekend?
Right. So Northridge Church, we are a church that's been around a long time, so about 127 years. Yeah. And we're a church that's transitioned. So when I came to the church about 12 years ago, there were a couple hundred people, 300-400 people on a Sunday morning. And we have transitioned that. So it was your typical Baptist church, what you would have thought of, what I grew up in. I mean, that's who we were. I mean, we had the Sunday school, the prayer meeting, we did it all. So we began to look at churches that were reaching people. We were not a church that was reaching people who were far from God. And so we said, well, who is and how might God be able to use that to help us here at Northridge? So we began the process of adjusting, transitioning, and began to head in a direction that would help us do that. So we have grown. We're multi-site. We've got 3 sites right now, one in a school, one in a theater, and then one that is our original campus. We have a 4th that we're rolling out this summer.
Fantastic.
So another Regal theater that we're going to use. So this will be our 4th, and we're excited about that. But if you come today, it would look similar to other churches that are reaching people. So you're talking about a church where groups is a big part of what we do, a church that's kind of become more simple. We kind of moved, we had a school. I mean, there were a lot of things that were a part of who we were, and we did a ton of things as a church, and we've pared that down and really attempted to, we say make more and better disciples. So that is who we are. We want to make more and better, and so we've pared down, and there's 2,300 people on a weekly basis at Northridge right now, and we're just really thankful.
Now, correct my language here. So I would describe your church, and I'm sure this is imprecise, but correct this. I would describe you guys as, you're like a high discipleship church in the fact that you want to unashamedly, use scripture and help people take steps closer to God. But you also at the same time, I haven't been afraid to say like, hey, we want to mix in some of the attractional stuff that some of, our attractional brothers and sisters do. It seems like you're striking a different balance that maybe some from maybe your close tribe aren't really doing. Is that true? Am I describing that correctly?
We've not been afraid to tackle deeper theological issues, if that's what you're asking, Rich. Yeah. And we have a whole equip section. We have equip classes. There's weekly equip emails that go out. A lot of video teaching type stuff. So yeah, we've tried to do more and better. Instead of being a church that just goes all to the more and trying to reach more disciples, we want to do more and better. And that was really helpful us in holding on to our core, because we didn't want to just turn our church over and lose. I mean, we've got some who stuck with us, who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, who they're still with us, and love the fact that we're seeing a whole bunch of young people come into the church, a ton of young couples come into the church, and seeing us baptize people. So so I think we're a blend that way.
Yeah, that's very cool, which I think is great. I think it's fantastic. A great church you should be checking out. Now, one of the things I caught my eye once, hearing about the group side of what's going on at Northridge. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What you've actually kind of gone through a little bit of a revolution here and seeing a whole bunch of people get more plugged into groups. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we decided to put our eggs in the groups basket as opposed to the adult Sunday school basket, and as a part of that process, we had some other churches that were really helpful, and we studied the normals, and on that groups front, we've seen it grow from when we started. We had about 20% of our adults on a Sunday morning who were in our group environments to now where we're up in the 90, 95, 100% of our people are in groups.
That's amazing.
That's when you measure how many adults are there Sunday morning, and then how many are attending in a group. And so there's a number of things that have helped us in that process. But we've become a church of groups as opposed to a church with groups, and that's where it happens. And there's no way we could have grown from a few hundred to 22, 2,300 without our groups functioning well, and those 300 plus community group leaders stepping up and shepherding those people and leading those people, because we just can't do it. We're not a big enough staff.
No, that's amazing. Why don't we kind of pick through what are some of the things that you did to really make that shift from, hey, we're a church of groups to, or church, with groups to of groups. Tell me what you did to kind of make that transition.
Right. So some of the things we did was we talked about it all the time. So on Sunday mornings, we talk about in your groups, you're going to do this week. And so in your groups, you'll be discussing this. So it became a constant thing that we're talking about. The other thing is we made it a part of our assimilation strategy. So the first step for everyone is a worship service. That tends to be the way it is for people in America today. So if we're going to be missionaries to America, to Rochester, we got 1 million people in Rochester. If we're going to be missionaries to that culture, unbelievers say, if I was going to show up at church, I'd show up Sunday morning. So first step is worship service. Then from there, they jump right into a group. So we're immediately attempting to find a group that fits them. We use 3 trimesters a year. So 3 times a year, it's on-ramps, on-ramps and off-ramps. It's North Coast. I mean, we took, Larry Osborne, it's their model, it's church. And with those, everybody gets a chance to join groups 3 times a year, and then, get out of groups 3 times a year. So there's feedback forms, they're, jumping in, jumping out. But it becomes real natural that groups are all starting, 3 times a year, and everybody's jumping in and promoting them. We'll do a church-wide campaign. We don't do it Saddleback style where we're doing them all the time, that kind of thing. But we will do hey, we're all going to be, doing this together a couple times a year to get as many people kind of jumping in. The difference is we don't ask our groups. Saddleback would ask their groups to kind of stop meeting and do it together. We don't do that. Our groups kind of continue on, and so you're adding new people into your existing group as a part of that process. As far as how we shepherd those leaders, those 300, I think they're like 321 community group leaders. Those people are so key, and we staff to help them. We've taken kind of the North Point model, where North Point said we tried to use volunteer coaches for our group leaders, and it didn't work. And we found the same thing. It was really hard to have our volunteer group leaders kind of respect volunteer coaches. And so for us, and with all this stuff, this isn't what everybody should do, but this is just what's worked for us. It's kind of matched our DNA. We've actually had our staff be the ones who coach those group leaders. So we'll have staff members who have 50, 60 community group leaders that they would have that report to them and that they connect with. Each of our campus pastors, they coach the leaders on their campus, so they're the ones that do that. And for our original campus, there's a couple different guys from staff who would help to coach. But it's something where we really want to support them and help them as they work throughout the year. And put them in a spot where they win,
Now, so you said there's 50 or 60 per staff member, and is that what does that look like? What does that kind of coaching relationship look like? How often are they checking in? What is the, I know North Point has I think they call it the 1-1-2, one training event, one or two 1-1-2-2, one training event, two one-on-ones a year, and then 2 kind of equip events during the year. But what are you guys doing on that front?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rich. So what we do is twice a year we do a large training event. And so we'll pull all the leaders together from all the campuses. Lead pastor is there. He'll do a little talk. We'll cast some vision. We'll feed them. They get to choose. There's a number of breakouts that we'll offer at that event, and they get to choose which breakouts they want to go to. Because they kind of divide and conquer as group leaders and each pick a different spot, or they can all go together to specific breakouts. As a part of that process, as a part of that training, we just, love on them like crazy and make it, you guys are the key to growth at Northridge. Tell life change stories, baptism stories, just talk up what they're doing and just celebrate them as our leaders, because they really are the key. They're on the front lines. We aren't as a staff. They're the ones that are making it happen. So those 2 trainings a year we would do for them. In addition to that, we do something a little different than North Point. We do visit the groups. So our coaches will visit the groups, which for a campus pastor is so helpful.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, because if you have a high percentage of your people who are in groups, and now you're visiting the groups, I mean, they get to learn new names. They see people in a group context. So a couple times a year, once or twice a year, we kind of let based on where the group is at as far as in their, if they just started, a coach is going to be there more often. If they're, they've been at it for a while and they don't need the help, then they might, opt to only visit them once a year. But we get in the group and we connect with them. And then as we go throughout the year, there's touch points. We do a weekly blog post that goes out to all of our group leaders from our director of our groups that'll go out. And this is all on our website. People can find it there, and you can see all the past blog posts. And basically, you can steal anything we do, because everything we do, we stole from somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing new under the sun, and we didn't invent any of this. So feel free to steal away. Yeah. And then from there, it's they're texting, they're connecting. We'll do, like, one thing I love about it is, I'm a group leader. All of us on staff are group leaders. And as I lead my group, my coach will text me on the first night of group. So the first night of a trimester, I get a text from him saying, "Hey, I'm praying for you today. Love you. We're behind you. Excited about how God's going to use groups this trimester. If I can help you in any way, let me know." And we just do that through Google Voice. So it's something he can text from his computer, and he can send it out as group text to go to everybody as group leaders. But just high touch, high shepherd, high love, and we see 80 to 90% of our group leaders show up for our trainings because they know we love them and we care about them, and we're packing out the auditorium, feeding them, and it's really cool.
That's amazing. Now, you talk about trimesters. Can you talk through that a little bit? Because I know a lot of churches do twice a year. They kind of have 2 on-ramps, but talk through the 3, and what does it look like? Just kind of an overview of what the on looks like and what the off looks like. Yeah,
no, that's great. So our first trimester in the school year, from that perspective, we'll start in September. So we'll do about a 10-week trimester from September until Thanksgiving. And so there's about 10 weeks. You can get 8, 9, 10 weeks in that run. So we'll run that. We kind of kick it off with there's a sermon on groups in September, the way everybody does it, kind of get it going, and then we'll run the 10 weeks there. We encourage groups then to take and stop and actually take a break. It's just so helpful. Take a break. Now get together, do a Christmas party. Serve together at Christmas. Go ring a bell. Be a ding-a-ling with the Sunday sermon. Whatever you got to do. But serve together, but party together, and then start back up again in January. Okay. And so then again, we'll have a training. So there's a training that happens for our leaders to kind of kick it off in the fall. Our second training will be in January again, and that kicks off that January trimester. And so then again in January we do about another 10 weeks, so another 10-week trimester. Then we take another break, and we'll usually take a break tied to Easter. And so we'll try to take a break, a couple weeks off, and then get us set for Easter, and then do it again. And that last trimester for us usually is about an 8-week trimester, 9-week trimester. Yep, it is, because we like to, for us up here in the north, we like to get it stopped before we get too far into June, because once June hits, everything breaks loose and people start heading out to the lake or whatever.
The sun starts shining again, and they're outside.
Yeah. It does. So that's how it breaks down for us. 3 trimesters, and all 3 times we on Sunday morning are promoting our group. So we typically give 3 announcement times before each of those. So in a span of a full year, 9 times a year we're talking about groups.
That's good.
So those times we're pushing it, showing videos, life change stories, but just trying to talk people into groups. And it's not just talk people into checking out groups, because we have so many people already in groups, but also talking people into why it's valuable that they're already in groups.
Right, stay in the group you're in.
Because if you're just always just pushing the get in group, you can lose some and have some attrition. And so we try to make it a both and on that front.
And then are your, are the groups, are they just stay together forever, or are they more, again, using North Point as an example, they're doing like the 2 years, they kind of journey, so maybe 6 cycles together or something like that? What does that look like?
Right, that's a great question. So the way our groups work, they will stay together until they multiply. Now, for us, multiplication happens at about 18 to 20 people. So once you get to that point, you're multiplying. Those groups multiply in a couple different ways. Sometimes they'll do what we call a missionary multiplication, which is you kind of send off a couple missionaries to start a brand new group for new people. So we might spin a couple couples out of my group. My wife and I have done that multiple times. We've jumped out of our group and went and started another group with brand new people. So that could be how it works. Or it could be something that's tied more to, could be geography. When we've rolled out new campuses, about every 2 years, we've been rolling out new campuses. When that happens, you got people that go to the other campus. Right. We don't mandate at that point in time, you have to go, your group has to divide. But in multiplication, it becomes natural. If you're seeing the people at your group, we would prefer that you meet in a group that is tied to the people that are at your campus. So that would be a natural time for that to happen. Or it might just be that, there's just tied to where people's age and stage. We need childcare, we don't need childcare, so let's divide that way. But we would encourage them. You get to 18 to 20 people, new people don't talk, and new people find that it feels more like a clique. And so at that point, we would say it's time. We don't have a hard and fast after 2 years you're done. It's something where
it's really nice.
Grow, add people, and then they multiply as need be.
So then people would be adding in for each of those trimesters. So like there may be like the same people together for the fall trimester, and then you'll kind of reopen and say, oh, there's groups in your part of town. Naturally, then you might add like a couple more people in at that point. Is that how that's working?
Right. Yes,
okay.
It is. It totally is. And we would say groups are starting. Even though a group met in the fall, when we're promoting groups in January, we're saying, hey, groups are starting up fresh. And then when you show up in the group, you'd realize that a bunch of these people had been together before. But we act like all of our groups are starting or restarting at the same time. So it becomes an easier way for someone to join a group. Now, we do have people that join group in the middle of a trimester as well. We don't say that you can't do that, but the bulk of our people join primarily in the fall and on January 1. That's when most of them join.
Cool. Good. Now, what do you use to measure all that? What would be some of the kind of key metrics across that you're looking at? I'm sure, a good executive pastor is always staring at a spreadsheet somewhere. What are what are some of those, metrics that you're kind of taking a look at through this process?
Yeah, I do love numbers. I've been accused of that before, Rich. There's no question.
Nice.
Yeah. So the dashboards that I'm looking at, or that we're looking at, our group's directors are looking at. I mean, we're looking at attendance. We do track attendance every single week.
Okay.
So all of our group leaders, it's really easy. We use Fellowship One. I mean, you could use anything. Everybody has different. We used to use church teams years ago. But it lands in your inbox. It's just an email. You click on it, and then you click who was present. So we're tracking every week's attendance in all of our groups. That becomes something that the coach can follow back up with. Hey, I noticed this person wasn't there. What's going on in their life? What's happening? It becomes something where we can help track. So it's attendance. We're also tracking assimilation there. So what's our assimilation percent? How many people are signing up to check out a group? How many people are actually landing in the group? So what do our percentages look like that way? And then how are we doing at retaining them? Are they sticking or are they not sticking? What does that look like? So we're looking at those. We do like kind of quarterly dashboards, and it's across the board, all sorts of things we're measuring. But tied to groups, it's in those 3 trimesters. Who's new that's signing up? Who's sticking? Who's not? What does our attendance look like? And then who's kind of slipping away? We're always looking at dropouts and figuring out how can we circle back with them and help them in that process. So having good data is so important. And the larger it's gotten, it's so much more important for us to have that data.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. This has been so good. Can we change gears a little bit in a totally different area about Northridge? You guys have gone through a senior pastor transition as a church. And, just as I was thinking about this, which obviously has been super positive, it's not like anything negative went down, but I'd love to hear kind of what you learned through that process, because as an executive pastor, you served through that whole, whole deal. And it actually seems, from an outside, like a lot of times, I think some churches can struggle through that process, but actually for you guys, it seems to have really, reinvigorated, continued to, keep things heading in the right direction. What have you learned through that process? Again, I'm throwing you a curveball here, Scott. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, no, we did. We went through a lead pastor transition within in the last year. So a year ago, David would have announced, about a year and a couple months. So this is about he would have announced to me nearly a year and a half ago, or nearly 2 years ago. He said, I'm going to be leaving. And so that began the process for us. And so in that process, God was really good to us, Rich. It was a time that for us as a church, we really, we became more dependent on God in that, and we became more focused on making more disciples. And so we just said, more disciples, more dependence. That was our mantra as a church. We want to be on our knees every day. God, you've used Northridge, and we long to see you use Northridge moving forward. And we don't know what this means, but we know you're calling David elsewhere, and he's moving on, and he's the one that has transitioned us to this point. Yeah. So we were on our knees, and it kind of galvanized us. It pulled us together. By God's grace, I called a number of executive pastors and was like, what can I learn, and what do I need to do, and how do I lead through this? And that was really helpful, what they shared with me. And we actually grew. Our church grew. Last year we grew at our third highest rate in the last 15 years as a church without a lead pastor. And we that was by his grace, God's grace. Our budget grew. I mean, we grew right through the transition, and that process, yeah, God made it really clear. Drew Karshner is our new lead pastor. He's been amazing. He's been incredible and helpful in the process. But we had a season where we were without a lead guy, and we as a staff have stuck together. The whole staff is still here. We're growing forward. We grew so fast that we needed to add another campus, so we're doing that right now. And so I guess I would say if you're in a transition, let it drive you to your knees, and let it drive your church to its knees, because it's God's church. It's not your church. It's not my church. We are all, I would say it's God's show, and I'm just along for the ride, and we're all just along for the ride. So in the process, when there's a transition, make that a time where you can help everybody to say, God, this is about you, and it's about your glory, and it's about us being missionaries in this culture for you, and we need your help in it. And if you can get your staff to be praying, and you get yourself to be praying, that connectedness is beautiful. I mean, that's where the power's at, right? I mean, it's not us. I can't change anybody's life.
Right.
Paul in 1 Corinthians 3:6-8 said, and speaking of seeds of the gospel, he said, I planted the seeds, Apollos watered it, but it's God who made it grow. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who makes seeds of the gospel grow. And so having that be something that can help your staff and your team to kind of be driven back to, hey, God, this is about you, and it's not about me. And so, yeah, that's what we saw happen for us. We don't take any credit. We're very thankful. But yeah, it is something that God's helped us in.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to share before we either on the group stuff or on the the pastoral transition before we jump into the lightning round?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a church that's transitioning, I know you mentioned a little earlier on the transition front. In that whole process, you can do it. I guess I would say, don't go too fast. I mean, it was like a 12-year process for us. That whole transition piece. I think I've watched friends go too fast, and it's caused people to jump out that didn't need to jump out. Right. And I guess I would just encourage you, you need to lead through transition, but make it incremental, lead well, and you can take a church that was 127 years old and have it be something that you see God use in huge ways moving forward. So, don't give up.
This is the unSeminary podcast. Stuff you wish they taught in seminary.
We're going to jump into the lightning round, that part of the episode where we ask similar questions of everybody that's on the show. You really do need to lean in and follow Northridge. It's a great church. Scott Bixby is the executive pastor there, and I'm just honored that you're on the show today. Scott, if you have an online resource that you'd love to let us know about that you're sharing, what would that be?
Yeah. So online stuff, and we use the normal stuff that the Google Drives and Evernote and that kind of thing. I guess one that I love Pocket Casts, and Pocket Casts allows me to listen to podcasts. I feel like podcasts are such a wealth of information, and I listen to them double time, and so you can speed them up. That's a beautiful thing. But there's so much good information out there. I mean, I've always been a guy who reads a lot, and I've always been a guy who loves conferences. I was at the conference this week with a bunch of our staff, but I'm telling you what, there's so much good information out there on podcasts that I just driving back and forth to work every day, I'll double time them, throw my earbuds in, and I just would encourage guys, that's something for me personally that helps me all the time.
Nice.
And then I'll take a screenshot of where I'm at on that, because you're always like, hey, that was really good information, but I'm not in my desk. For me, I'll take a screenshot on my phone of where it is, like the time, and then I can go back later and get it. So
that's a great tip. I've always struggled with that. Like, I'm like scurrying in my car looking for a pen to try to write down notes. That's a great idea, man. That's good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Great call. Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever listened to any podcasts on halftime? Have you ever done that?
I never have. That would be painful. Oh man.
So if you've got an iPhone, it doesn't actually just slow it down by half. It does something. The algorithm's very strange. So it actually sounds like the person's drunk. So it's amazing. So if you ever want to hear, if you're listening to John Piper and you want to make it, what would John Piper sound when he had too many to drink? Listen to him at halftime. It's amazing. So
that's good.
What's a book you've read in the last 6 months or maybe to a year that's been shaping your thinking or ministry?
Yeah, a number of books come to mind. Some that we've used on staff, the Leadership Axioms by Hybels. We're actually going through that one with a number of our staff guys right now. Really good on those leadership principles that are helpful. Stretch by Scott Sonnenschein. I read that this week. Really good. Just I don't know if you picked that one up. That's a business book called Stretch. It just really helpful on who you hire, how you hire, what that looks like. you had the right kind of people for your team. That was helpful to me. Stop recruiting, start retaining. Yeah, that one is really good on the volunteers. We're going to be running that one with our staff moving forward in the next couple of months, kind of focusing on how do we work on the volunteer front. So that's a good one as well.
No, that's good. Christine Kreischer, the author of that book, has been on the podcast. It's great. That's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
All great books there. What's another ministry that you're looking to that inspires you these days?
Yeah, a ton of them. This week I had a number of our staff down at North Point for Drive. They've helped us over the years. We've gone every year to Drive. They've stretched our thinking in reaching people far from God. We also had our campus pastors down at 12 Stone this weekend, kind of studying them, learning from them. LCBC is near us here in the north, so we'll run down to their stuff whenever they have it. They'll answer any question. They're just amazing at helping us. So the normal guys, Life Church, Elevation, we try to get out and check those out as often as we can to learn.
Yeah, what's going on?
As much as possible.
Good.
Yeah.
If you get 15 minutes with any leader live, who would that be with and why?
Yeah, Bill Hybels, I would. Just because, I'll tell you what it is, Rich. It's his emphasis on prayer. He's like an amazing leader, and he's accomplished incredible things. But the fact that he's, writing books, too busy not to pray, and he talks about every day, starting the day, honestly saying, God, who is it today that you're going to bring into my life who's far from God that I can connect with? I just love that you've got a high capacity leader that God's used to reach people, but he's got that connection to God on a daily basis. And so, I would love to just talk with him about some of the rhythms, what he's learned, and pick his brain.
Yeah, very cool. Good. Well, I know being an executive pastor at a church like yours takes a lot out of you, but what do you do for fun when you just want to kick back, relax, have a good time?
Yeah. So I'm probably a little weird on this one. I kind of live out of town.
Okay.
We kind of have some land, and I kind of have like a little farm thing going, and
Nice.
so I love to get on a tractor, or do John Deere, or run a bucket, move some stuff around, knock some stuff over. Yeah, I really love the outdoors. I love getting out, and so I'm in this city of 1 million people, but I live about 20 minutes outside of the city, or about 20 minutes from the church. But I love outside projects. If I can have a project, I got 5 kids. If I can be outside with my kids and we can be, having fun together, and it's a beautiful day. Rochester's amazing. That's me. I love the outdoors.
Very cool. Well, Scott, I really appreciate being on the show today. Thanks so much for doing that. If people want to get in touch with you or with the church, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so it's northridgerochester.com is our website. That's probably the easiest way. My email's on there, but
Great.
It's northridgerochester.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate being on the show.
Yeah. Yep. You do, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect. Check out unSeminary Inbox. You can sign up at unSeminary.com, and we'll send you helpful training resources every week. Plus, you'll gain immediate access to our exclusive members area with tons of resources you can use. Connect with Rich on Twitter at Rich Birch or through email, rich@unseminary.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at unseminary.com. It includes links to what we talked about today and more. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Did you enjoy today's episode? Drop by iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Join us next week when we'll learn more stuff we wish they taught in seminary.